Hi everyone, today I'm talking about my top 10 board games that can be played in under 15 minutes. So these are games that are great if you have a very short time frame to play, or maybe you're waiting for someone else to turn up to games night. These are ones you can get out quickly, play quickly, and then carry on with your night. I think a lot of filler games generally fall into that 20 to 30 minute bracket. So finding games that are 15 minutes or less aren't the easiest things to find. But nonetheless, I am very happy with my top 10 list here. I've got quite a diverse array of games. So let's get started at number 10. So at number 10, I have Senshi, which is a small abstract game, which is kind of set in this, set in the Far East, where it's got this martial arts style theme to it. But the theme is pasted on. It's got nothing else to do with the theme other than that. And the idea is you're trying to collect these tokens of 4 different disciplines, but essentially they're just 4 different colours. And the idea is you want to be the player who has the most of a certain type, but not the fewest of another type. So if you have, or at the end of the game, you have the fewest of any type, you're going to be automatically eliminated. But the way you collect these tokens is quite interesting. You basically get, I think it's 3 actions. And at the beginning of the game, there's going to be a bunch of these tokens spread out on the board. They're all 3 or stacked 3 tokens high. And you're either going to take a stack of those tokens and put it on your player board, which you've got a capacity of 3. You can choose to take a top token from someone, or from the centre of the table, or you can choose to kind of activate a certain colour of token, which means that the top token of every pile you've got on your stack is played into your final scoring area. But when you do that, it triggers every other player to do that as well, which is quite an interesting choice because you want to play things at very specific times where it benefits you and doesn't benefit your opponents. But I do like the way that the scoring works in this one. It has a very Reiner Knizia feel where you want to have the most but not the least of something. So you do have to think more kind of in a wide way rather than just focusing on a particular colour. You can't neglect everything, or at least you don't want to be have one of your stacks lower than everyone else, because as I said, you're going to be automatically disqualified from winning. So I like this one. This was actually a bit of a pleasant surprise for me. I bought this one completely blindly without knowing anything about it, and I think it works really well and probably should be more appreciated if more people knew about it. So that's Senshi at number 10. At number 9, I have Quinto. Now, Quinto is an extremely simple roll and write game. This one was probably one of the pioneers of the roll and write genre, where you essentially have 3 dice in different colours. You're rolling them, and then you're picking one of those, or the combined value of the dice you've rolled, and you can choose to roll all 3 of them. You can choose 2, or you can even just choose 1. And then you're writing a corresponding number onto your little player board, trying to make them go up in values, trying to fill in entire rows because you get more points, and trying to fill in columns because certain spots have a different kind of shape. We're going to get you points at the end of the game depending on the number in that. A really nice game, some nice little decisions and some good interaction as well, because whenever it's someone else's go, you can choose to take the number that they've rolled. But one of the simplest roll and write games, but I still think a really strong one, and I'd happily play this one anytime. Very family friendly, extremely accessible. I suppose anybody can play this one in terms of not only ability and maybe experience with the hobby, but also player count as well, because as long as you've got a sheet and everybody can see the dice that have been rolled, you can play this one. But breezy, fun little game. That is Quinto at number 9. The next game I'm going to be talking about is Rune, which is another abstract game. This one is strictly for 2 players. Now, the idea of Rune, I suppose, is an area control game made up of very few cards, to be honest. So this game is in a very small box. And all you're going to do is you're going to have a card in the centre of the table, which is divided into 6 sections depicting different runes. So you've got very common runes, and you've got the rarer runes, which are worth more points if you control them. And then on a player's turn, you're going to use one of your cards out of a hand of 3, and you're going to place it onto the existing card, or an existing card, abiding by one of 2 rules. So the first rule is you have to exactly cover what's beneath the card you've just played, or you have to have all the adjacent symbols matching. And once you do that, you can either choose to draw back up to your hand of cards, or you can choose to place a Rune Master, which basically kind of lays your claim to a certain type of rune. And the common runes are worth 1 point each for each one you control at the end of the game. The middle ones are worth 2 points each, and the rare ones are worth 3 points each. But the cool thing is in this one is when you place your Rune Master, you are now limited to 1 card fewer in your hand. So it has quite an interesting pacing where if you want to get your people down early, you're going to be a lot more restricted about what you can play from then on. A nice little abstract game, a nice little puzzly element to it, and I did enjoy this one quite a bit. A tiny little box, and it plays, in 10 minutes. Really nice little game. That is Rune at number 8. At number 7, I have Tsuro. Now, Tsuro is a game that can accommodate quite a few players. This one, I think, scales from 2 up to 8, I believe. And the idea of this game is that it's a tile placement game where you all have a player piece on the end of this gridded board. And all you're going to do on your turn is you're going to take one of the tiles from your hands and lay it onto the board next to where your player piece is. And from then on, you will move your player piece along these lines that are on these tiles, trying to stay on the board as long as you can. Because the more people are playing tiles onto the board, it's getting tighter and tighter and closer, where eventually these tiles will start connecting with one another, and then your player pieces have to follow the lines no matter what. So the idea is you're trying to stay on the board as long as you can and force all the other players off by making their lines go off the board. A really natty little game. It only takes, this one takes about 10 minutes as well, no matter how many people play this one, because inevitably there will only be one person who does stay on the board at the end. You can choose to play tiles to kind of smash people's player pieces into one another, which again will eliminate them. So a really nice little player elimination game that only takes 10 minutes. So, if you don't like player elimination, this isn't a big deal. Has real nice, fun moments. Takes 30 seconds to teach, and has just some really simple decisions, but it works really well. So I like this one quite a bit. This one is Tsuro. Next up, I have 5 Minute Mystery at number 6. So 5 Minute Mystery is a cooperative real-time deduction game where you're essentially trying to work together to try and work out who's basically burgled a museum. And what you're going to do is, basically, I suppose one of 3 different elements of the game. The first thing being to look at these illustrations, trying to work out which symbols are hidden amongst these illustrations, and then you're trying to relay that information to someone who's controlling this codex, and they're going to be rotating these symbols on this codex, trying to match what's on that card. If you get it, once you're kind of happy with your choices, you'll either reveal that card and be incorrect and have to move on to the next one, but if you're correct, you get to draw this tile which will have a certain kind of criteria on it. Something like, does the culprit wear glasses? And then you will match it with this with the suspect, which was kind of decided blindly at the beginning of the game. And it will basically, this code on the side of these tiles will tell you whether the suspect does have glasses or they don't have glasses. And then depending on that information, you're going to have to go through this big stack of suspects and eliminate who you think it's going to be. Really fun. Certainly has a high energy to this one. Keeps you on your toes. I said the game takes 5 minutes literally because you're working against a timer. There's different missions you can work through, but it has a real nice fun factor. It's nice to be a cooperative deduction game that plays so quickly. Really beautiful game to look at. Really nice aesthetics and artwork. Very inviting, and I think this is an extremely pleasant, fun little game. That is 5 Minute Mystery at number 6. At number 5, I have another real-time game. This one takes 10 minutes exactly, with Escape the Curse of the Temple. Now, this is another cooperative game where you are essentially rolling dice as quickly as you can, trying to match symbols and explore and eventually escape this cursed temple. When you get to certain rooms, you can kind of pull up your dice together and try and eliminate these gems to make it easier for you to get out the escape. You can lock your dice and other people can come and rescue you from having all your dice locked. So a very frantic, but again, another high energy game that's a lot of fun. I think you do have to be in the right mood to play this one, but if you are and you have the right group, then it certainly is a really good experience. I'm really glad I played this one. And that kind of tension of getting out the temple before it all implodes on you is fantastic. And another interesting thing in this game, despite it being only 10 minutes exactly, because you are working against a kind of soundtrack, at certain points in the game you have to rush back to the central tile or kind of suffer a penalty, and I absolutely love that tension. There is a real kind of rush and franticness to get back to the centre, and the theme I think comes through really nicely in this one. One of the best real-time games, I think. That one is Escape the Curse of the Temple. At number 4, I have a Reiner Knizia game with Kyriba. Now, Kyriba is probably, well, at least one of the lightest games on this list. Extremely simple card game, where the idea of this was we're supposed to be playing these animals around this kind of watering hole. But this different sections of this watering hole, I suppose there's an octagon labelled from 1 to 8 on each section, which corresponds to different cards in your hand. And on your turn, you're going to do basically one thing, which is to play a particular card into the watering hole and match it to the corresponding space. But you can play as many cards of that type as you want. And as soon as you play a third one of a type, the animal that you've played will consume the cards in the next space below it, or the kind of next available space below it. So, for example, the 8 cards are depicted by an elephant, and if you play the 8 cards, then the third or more eighth card, then it will eat all the 7 cards that are available. And you're just trying to do this over and over again and trying to collect or as many cards as you can by eating the animals. But this game actually has some hidden depth there, because you want to be very careful about what you want to leave your opponents. Because if you just keep smashing down as many animals as you can to not get many rewards, you're just leaving your opponents opportunities to take the cards you've just played, because it actually does loop around where the 8 eats the 7, the 7 eats the 6, but then the 1 eats the 8. So a really nice little game, and I think this one actually works particularly well at 2 players. Probably one of the lightest games I have in my collection, but I still think it's a really strong game, and certainly one of those games that you can teach to absolutely anybody. A lot of fun. That one is Kyriba at number 4. At number 3, I have my second roll and write game. This one is Hex Roller. Now, Hex Roller is a game I didn't really know much about before I played this one, but I must admit, this one has really kind of hooked me. I really do enjoy this one, and I find myself wanting to play this one quite a lot. This is a game where you're rolling a bunch of dice and trying to do a number of things with those dice. So you can pick a certain number, and you're trying to kind of, in this huge grid of different sections and numbers, you're trying to kind of connect numbers to one another. You're trying to fill in regions with numbers because you're going to get a number of points equal to that. You're trying to do lots of different things with these numbers, and they all kind of conflict with one another. The choices are quite difficult in this game, because sometimes you have to take the lower numbers and go for other bonuses rather than going for the high numbers, but you're also rewarded for taking a wide spread of numbers. So there's lots of different approaches you can take. Not the easiest game to explain in a video like this. I think it's a game you kind of have to see for yourself. Quite mathematical, but very breezy, and it plays extremely quickly. A satisfying little game that's slightly variable because there's 2 different sides of the sheet you can use. As I said, I just like the different approaches you can take in this one, and you have to kind of react on the fly to what you've got. Nice roll and write game, and I think again another underrated one, but one that I personally enjoy quite a lot. That one is Hex Roller at number 3. At number 2, I have my second Reiner Knizia game. This one is Charte. Now, Charte is a strictly 2-player abstract game, but it's a tile placement game that is purely boiled down into 9 tiles. So as soon as a 3x3 grid is made, the game is going to end immediately. One person in this game is going to kind of represent the sea, and the other one is going to represent the land, because this game is kind of based on a map. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to build the biggest kind of connecting region of your chosen landscape, the land or the sea, and the person who has the biggest connecting area at the end of the game is going to win. But I love the way this game is boiled down into, I think it's 2 very simple actions. The first one is to play a tile and add it to the board, just abiding to that 3x3 grid rule. And the second action you can take is to rotate an existing tile 90 degrees. But the way these tiles are kind of illustrated and are drawn up is really interesting, because by one rotation I can completely throw the control off massively and just give the victory to yourself or your opponent. You have to weigh up that you don't want to leave your opponent in positions where if they just do a simple move, they're going to take the power backwards. A very cerebral game where you do have to plan ahead. The smallest of mistakes in this game can cost you massively. Extremely tense and cutthroat, but it works really well in this kind of 10-minute abstract style game. It looks beautiful, tiny little box, and I think it's quite a nice, deep little game that can be played very quickly, and another testament to how great of a designer Reiner Knizia is in making these pure, clean-cut, boiled-down games, and Charté is another strong one that just doesn't get enough hype. And finally, my number one 15-minute or less game is Circle the Wagons. Now, Circle the Wagons is another two-player only game, so if you like your two-player games, there's a lot of games on this list to check out. This one is by Button Shy, who make these games that come in these tiny little wallets. I think the game only comes with 18 cards, full stop. So there's a lot of game and a very few components in this one. And the idea is that we have this kind of wheel of cards, which are divided into 4 sections. And in each of those 4 sections on each card, it has different kind of Western symbols. You've got like chariot, so like wagons, and you've got pickaxes and guns and barns. And out of those 3 cards, so out of all those cards, you're going to pick 3 of them and put them on the reverse side, which is going to have the scoring criteria for this particular game. So on each of these 18 cards, there's a unique scoring criteria. So from game to game, you are having a completely different experience. And I love that. And what you're going to do is you're going to pick one of these cards from this wheel, or at least the first player is, and put them on their kind of tableau, trying to not only get as many points as they can from these objectives by maybe having certain symbols next to each other or having the biggest cluster of a certain symbol, all these different cool things. But the thing that I really love about this game is that when you choose one of these cards in this kind of rondelle system, if you skip a number of cards, the opponent gets all the cards in between or before the card you've just chosen. So you can jump really far and potentially give your opponent loads of cards to place in that tableau, which could be a good thing or could be a bad thing, because sometimes the objectives are to suffer negative points for taking a certain symbol. So weighing up if you're going to jump ahead to get a very particular card with what you're going to give your opponent is a really interesting, deep decision, and plays extremely quickly. I love the variety in this game. So many things you can try. Every game is going to be unique, and just some good decisions in a 2-player game that takes, as I said, 10-15 minutes to play. Has a very addictive feel where as soon as you play it, you want to play it again. Conflicting scoring mechanisms which can kind of pull you in different directions. This game has everything really, and it's so impressive, and that it's all boiled down to just a few cards. So that's why Circle the Wagons is number 1. Probably one of the best 2-player games I've played in a long time. So I hope you've enjoyed this video and you've got some use out of this one. If you have, please hit like and subscribe to my channel, and check out my other videos too. For everyone else, I'll see you next time on Chairman of the Board. Bye.